Hey there and welcome back to another Dreamworks video. And recently, we saw the release of the latest installment in the Kung Fu Panda franchise, a made-for-Netflix original series, Kung Fu Panda: The Dragon Knight. And I'm not gonna lie to you, Kung Fu Panda is my shit. I love it, can't get enough. There's nothing else quite like a healthy dose of childhood nostalgia. And Jack Black's the best. So what could go wrong, am I right? I mean, the idea of injecting more European stuff into a Chinese Kung Fu adventure does seem like it has the potential to go wrong in every single way and create a massive genre mismatch, but I figured, it's Dreamworks. They probably know what they're doing. And if they brought back Jack Black, surely they have the budget to make this thing work. Oof, spoke too soon. Because the first trailer for this thing, it looked bad. I'll be honest, it looked terrible. At first glance, the majority of the performances felt phoned in at best. And the actual quality of the animation was very poor as well. You can't go into this type of thing expecting the highest quality of animation, but surely they could do better than that. Same with the voice acting. Why not just hire professional voice actors, people who have worked for years in this craft and know how to get the best out of their performance. But whatever. I figured it can't possibly be too bad, right? The final product will be nice and polished, right? After all, Dreamworks has been known to make some mediocre things, but nothing that usually dips into the realm of being overly terrible, just disappointing. And oh, how I wish I could go back and warn myself. Don't do it. Do not subject yourself to this torment. You'll regret it. And indeed, I do regret it, because it's bad. It's very bad, in fact. There's almost nothing that really redeems this thing. I mean, just look at its Rotten Tomatoes score. A 20% audience rating as of this recording. It might have changed since then, but 20%. That is low. It's pathetically low. I mean, it has a lower rating than Cars 2. Cars 2! When you manage to make something that's less well received than the worst film that Pixar's ever made, than the worst example of a studio overestimating the popularity of a comedy sidekick, then you know you've made something truly bad. Something that deserves to be forgotten to time. Something that just needs to be locked away in a vault, never to be spoken of again. It's embarrassing. So yeah, if you watch this to check whether you should bother watching it, don't. I do not recommend this festering turd of a show. But if you want details, I got details. But before I get into what was bad about the show, what really sucked, I should probably go over the very brief list of what was good. Jack Black and James Hong had good voice acting performances. Generally, they were the two most enjoyable characters, and they were the most consistent overall. They seemed to be the people who put in the most effort or skill into their voice performances, and actually seemed like they cared about what they were saying. Like they were properly inhabiting the characters instead of just reading off a script or putting on a stupid voice. But that's not the only good thing. From time to time, the show did make me laugh with its classic Kung Fu Panda humour, and maybe it wasn't at the standard of the films, but it did give me a giggle every so often. So at least it made the experience somewhat enjoyable. But not enough, because yes, that is my complete list of what the show did right. Regrettably, it did much more wrong. So much more wrong. And I almost don't know where to begin, but I guess I'll go for the low-hanging fruit first. It looked like dog shit. The animation was trash tier, god awful. It looked like Hoodwinked 2 in terms of its quality. And look, I get it, it's a made-for-Netflix show. It's not going to have the budget that a film's going to have. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you I need to be able to see every different strand of Poe's fur or I'm going to riot. Or I need to see the moon reflecting in his eyes. I'm not completely ridiculous, but come on. I think if your graphics are hardly better than a PlayStation 2 cutscene, and yet you've released your show in 2022, then you're really doing something wrong. It's so ugly and low quality that it's honestly distracting at times and makes the show look like one of those cheap animated Russian knockoffs. Kind of like the Pinocchio film that got heavily memed out earlier this year. It's not a great look when something so high profile looks like this. For Dreamworks and Netflix, it makes them look ridiculously cheap. But that wasn't all that was wrong with the show. Like I said, that's just the low-hanging fruit. There's much more. Next up, the acting. The acting was so bad. Almost everyone sucked. Almost everybody sounded like they didn't care. Yes, there were the actors I mentioned before that did a decent enough job, but most of the rest of them were either forgettable or terrible. And the main villains, Klaus and Veruca, are borderline unwatchable. They have two of the most annoying voices ever recorded. Nails on a chalkboard. They make your ears bleed. It's truly that bad. A good performance makes or breaks a villain. And the best performances make you hate the villain and yet make you want to see them, make you want to watch them. This just makes me hate the villain and yet also want to see them off my screen, preferably forever. It makes me want to tune out. It's the Jar Jar Binks effect. You make a character so deeply annoying that nobody wants to see them ever again. And that's a bad thing, because these are two of the most important characters in the show. They're the main antagonists. They drive the plot with their villainy, and yet it's hard to engage with their scenes, as they suck. Ugh. Also, Rita Ora? Is it Rita Ora? Is that how you pronounce her name? Yeah, Rita Ora. She's the knight, and she sounds like she's reading off a script. Like, I know that's what acting technically is, but I'm pretty sure you're meant to seem like it's real. You're meant to try a bit harder than that. Like, when you see or hear a performance, you're not meant to think, oh yeah, you can tell they're going off a script. And it's made even worse by the fact that I bet she got a decent chunk of the budget siphoned off into her bank account. I mean, she's a decently big name, all things considered, I'm pretty sure. Like, not a mega star, but certainly big compared to the rest of the cast, besides Jack Black, of course. And this is what we get from that. It's like Poe is talking to a brick wall almost all the time, or a socially awkward robot. It ruins the dynamic that Poe usually builds with side characters and throws off the flow of many different scenes, as well as lessening so much emotional impact from a lot of key plot points. So yes, bad visuals, bad acting, and now, bad story. And it's not necessarily the story itself that's bad, but merely bad execution of a number of narrative elements. For starters, Poe got nerfed. And I mean, is there something wrong with having a protagonist that's very strong, that has heaps of powerful abilities? I mean, it's not like this is the first entrant into the franchise. Poe has been around the block, we get it, he's strong now. And yet, we come into this, and he's significantly weaker than I remember him being. Like, yeah, he was always a bit unconventional, but here he comes across as very pathetic. And it feels like they've done this to make the villains, and Luthera, their original character, seem a bit stronger. Just felt like he was weak for the sake of being weak, so he could have a generic works to get his strength back storyline. But that's not all, because we followed up this bungled hero's journey with a lack of appearance of many of the most iconic Kung Fu Panda characters, to the point that it no longer makes sense in terms of the story. Poe is being hunted by the Emperor of China and had all his titles stripped away. His master and all his close friends? None of them seem to give a shit, because they never appear, you never hear about them. And this is clearly also he can become codependent on the new character, their original character. So in the end, I think the story lacks a lot of oomph because it doesn't have those key characters, those key relationships. Half of those are what makes Poe so exciting, but this new character replaces all of that, and it just doesn't stack up. We get stuck with Poe and a bunch of newbies who don't live up to the characters they've replaced. And speaking of not living up to legacy, Luthera outright sucks as a character. Almost the entire story, she borderline hates Poe, and she treats him like shit. And in all honesty, she does almost nothing to make the audience want to see her succeed. She's regularly cruel to Poe, she threatens him, demeans him, bullies him, she abandons him one time after he gets arrested, and she gives him a half-hearted apology. She refuses to accept him as her friend, and she acts like she's a knight master, when she's in fact lying about that, and she's not a knight at all. And just almost until the final episode, she acts like a rude and entitled brat. What is there to like about her? It doesn't make her badass or cool. Writers, take notes. If you want your protagonist to be liked, don't have them treat your most popular character like trash. It's so frustrating. What makes me want to like this character? Nothing. And then they try to give her a backstory to make you sympathetic, but it doesn't really help, because at this point, she already seems like she sucks. And then you just show us that she used to suck in the past too, because she literally gets her brother killed. That's her backstory. That's what's meant to make you feel bad. She gets her brother killed. And this isn't a certain point of view type of thing. He legitimately dies because of her terrible decisions. Furthermore, the villains, whilst also being goddamn annoying, are never fleshed out. We know they're mages, and we know they're evil and betrayed the queen, but that's very vague. There's no real reason why, not much backstory or explanation. And so once again, it is very hard to care. The villains in the films, they had storylines, a reason for why they were the way they were. And these storylines made sense and enhanced their character and their interactions with the other characters. These two just don't have that. And so it's like, okay, so why should I care? Same with the other minor villains. The Emperor's an asshole, for some reason, and he's mostly used for comic relief. But there's also a treasure hunter monkey who acts as a side villain and a sort of anti-hero type thing, but neither of them are fleshed out at all either. It's not like this is an episodic monster of the week type deal. This is a clear, linear story. Each episode follows after each episode. The story's connected. It's like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Whilst there might be mini arcs in each episode, they still have an overarching story. And so you can't really get away with not developing your characters in this type of deal. It just adds to the Russian bootleg feel of everything. And then on top of that, they don't even have a real ending. The villains win, the heroes look stupid, and then they say, well, let's end this on a cliffhanger with our heroes chasing after them. Ugh. So apparently there's going to be a season 2. Lovely. I'm certainly looking forward to watching a second season of a show that somehow manages to make 20-minute episodes feel like they go for 40 minutes, and that single-handedly managed to butcher an entire franchise. But maybe season 2 will be better. Guess I'll have to wait and see. So yeah, a couple of funny moments and a few good voice acting performances were not enough to offset a bad storyline, bad acting, bad visuals, and terrible narrative choices. So, big thumbs down from me. And if I seem salty in this video, I am, because I wasted literal hours of my life watching this thing so I could review it. Ugh, why? But anyway, as always, these are just my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the series, if you've seen it? You like it, hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.